You're going to adore this new retirement home we've found for you, with its delightful knitting classes that promise to fill your days with gentle creativity. Penelope's smile stretched across her face like a brittle mask, as artificial as the lash extensions fluttering on her eyelids, while Charles bobbed his head in eager agreement, resembling nothing more than a loyal but unthinking pup. And Leo, meanwhile, silently tallied the fortunes they would reap from auctioning off every piece of my hard-earned real estate empire. I simply offered a serene smile in return, murmuring that it all sounded utterly wonderful, even as, deep within my soul, something irreplaceable cracked and crumbled forever, leaving a hollow ache that no words could mend. They had selected the city's most opulent restaurant for this cruel performance, where pristine white linen draped the tables like a shroud, crystal glasses captured the warm glow of the setting sun in shimmering facets, and the intoxicating scent of freshly prepared seafood wafted through the air, creating an illusion of perfection that masked the cold execution of my spirit, all meticulously orchestrated to resemble a joyous family gathering, when in truth it was my living funeral, a heartbreaking betrayal disguised as care. "Mom, we understand you've been feeling a bit disoriented these days," Charles pressed on, his tone laden with feigned worry that twisted like a knife in my chest. Clad as he was in the elegant gray suit I had gifted him for his college graduation, a garment now worn to consign me to oblivion. That single word, confused, pierced my heart with a searing pain sharper than any blade, for I had deliberately simulated those fleeting moments of forgetfulness, testing the depths of their patience and the authenticity of their love, yearning desperately to discover if my own flesh and blood would stand by me in my hour of true need. Yet here was the devastating revelation, embodied in the emerald green dress I had lovingly bestowed upon her, a garment that now symbolized their profound indifference. "Dr. Miller believes this would truly be the kindest path for you," Leo interjected with a blatant falsehood, his eyes darting away from mine in evident guilt, describing a controlled setting with expert care and tailored activities for individuals of your venerable age, as though reaching 72 had transformed me into some alien being unworthy of basic respect, or the dignity I had fought so tirelessly to earn throughout my life. As if the decades I had poured into forging a thriving real estate kingdom from absolutely nothing held no value anymore, no weight in the balance of their affections, leaving me adrift in a sea of sorrow and disillusionment. "And those knitting classes are wonderfully soothing for the soul," Penelope added, her fingers grazing mine with a touch that scorched like deceitful flames, suggesting I could craft tablecloths, scarves, and other practical items that might bring a semblance of purpose to my waning days. Practical items? While they, in their voracious greed, divided my assets like ravenous vultures descending upon a still-warm carcass, condemning me to weave meaningless fabrics in a sterile chamber reeking of harsh antiseptics and the quiet despair of forgotten lives, a fate that clawed at my very essence with unrelenting anguish. "When might this transition occur?" I inquired, my voice steady as a tranquil lake concealing the brewing tempest beneath, even as my heart pounded with a mixture of rage and profound hurt. "Tomorrow," Charles replied with unseemly haste, revealing their premeditated eagerness, assuring me that every detail had been arranged, and that only a few signatures stood between me and this imposed exile, prompting me to press further with a question that hung heavy in the air. "And what will become of my cherished properties?" The ensuing silence enveloped us like a suffocating fog, thick and bitter on my tongue, as they exchanged furtive glances reminiscent of mischievous children discovered pilfering sweets from the forbidden jar, with Penelope clearing her throat awkwardly and Leo twisting his napkin until it threatened to shred in his anxious grasp. "Don't fret over such matters, Mom," Leo eventually murmured, his words dripping with insincere reassurance, promising they would handle everything since it was far too burdensome for me in my current state. A statement that ignited a fire of indignation within me, for those very properties I had acquired, restored, and stewarded for countless years were suddenly deemed beyond my capabilities. The investments I had nurtured from a modest $5,000 seed into a bountiful $1.5 million harvest, now requiring fresher intellects, untainted by the passage of time. That evening, I feigned swallowing the sleeping pills Penelope had so thoughtfully provided, discreetly expelling them into a napkin when her back was turned, for I required every ounce of alertness for the reckoning that loomed ahead, my mind racing with a blend of betrayal's sting and the fierce determination to reclaim my autonomy. By 11 o'clock, their hushed voices drifted from the kitchen, under the mistaken belief that I slumbered deeply, a grave error that would cost them dearly, as Charles whispered of the beach house's valuation at no less than $300,000, rustling documents across my sturdy oak dining table, the very surface where I had inked my inaugural real estate deal 4 decades prior, a sacred spot now desecrated by their avarice. And the downtown condo could fetch another $200,000, not to overlook the substantial bank investments, he continued, his words fueling the inferno of hurt raging in my core, while Penelope murmured urgently that they must move swiftly, decanting champagne into the crystal glasses I had presented for their anniversary, her voice laced with a chilling excitement that pierced my hidden vigil. Leo's laughter erupted then, a harsh, unfamiliar sound honed in the crucible of his union with her, mocking the notion that I might grasp their schemes, jesting that I had inquired about the time thrice the day before, a complete fabrication, for I had orchestrated that pretense to probe the venom coursing through their veins, and the bitter truth scorched my insides like corrosive acid, revealing how thoroughly my blood had soured. "Behold this," Penelope exclaimed, brandishing a document I instantly recognized as my will, proposing that once I was sequestered in the facility, they could contest my mental acuity with their primed attorney, a plan that deepened the chasm of my heartbreak even as Charles tallied the figures in his notebook. 400 for the primary residence, 300 for the beach retreat, 200 for the condo, and 600,000 from investments, culminating in nearly 1.5 million, every penny meticulously accounted for, down to the final cent. The harvest of my lifelong toil, sacrifices, and astute choices, all while they presumed me oblivious and subdued in my bedchamber. And the crowning irony, Leo chortled, with an audible smirk that reached me in my shadowed refuge, is that she'll remain blissfully ignorant of its true magnitude, dismissing it as mere trifling holdings. Their underestimation of me, a woman they viewed as a befuddled elder, incapable of grasping figures or commerce, stoking a resolute fire within. For unbeknownst to them, I scrutinized my portfolios each dawn, knew the precise worth of every asset, and harbored strategies beyond their wildest conceptions, schemes born from years of quiet vigilance and unyielding spirit. At the break of 5 in the morning, as they slumbered in the haze of their treacherous revelry, I donned my finest black pantsuit, gathering only the necessities, my passport, the concealed jewelry in its secret cache, and the key to a distant city's safe deposit box, where documents poised to alter destinies awaited, each item a talisman of my impending liberation and the profound sorrow of severed familial bonds. The taxi materialized punctually, its driver assisting with my modest suitcase without prying inquiries, and at the airport, I secured a one-way passage to a seaside haven housing a property veiled from their knowledge, a sanctuary that evoked waves of nostalgic longing and empowered resolve. During the ascent, I shut my eyes, invoking my mother's timeless counsel. Margaret, place not absolute faith in anyone, even your offspring, for blood may corrupt, yet dignity endures eternally. Her wisdom resonating now with poignant clarity, fueling my conviction that this 72-year-old woman could prove more formidable than any adversary they had encountered. A thought that mended fragments of my shattered heart with threads of fierce anticipation. The aircraft touched down in a locale untouched by my presence for 30 years, Seabrook Shores, Florida. A name my children had never uttered from my lips, for certain tales are too sacred to entrust to the unworthy, and the briny breeze assailed my senses like a cascade of long-buried recollections, stirring a whirlwind of emotions from joy to melancholy. This was the cradle of my journey, the site where I had invested my secretary's meager life savings of $5,000, a sum that felt monumental then, in my maiden property, a seed that blossomed into the vast dominion my progeny coveted with such callous hunger, a realization that evoked both triumphant pride and aching regret for the family I had nurtured. The cab navigated familiar avenues unaltered by time's march, where palm fronds swayed in confidential murmurs with the breeze, and vintage Florida abodes retained their whimsical allure, albeit some marred by impersonal contemporary facelifts that stripped away their soulful essence. "Is this the correct destination, ma'am?" the driver queried, halting before a sun-kissed yellow dwelling adorned with verdant wooden shutters, observing that it seemed dormant for ages, a comment that elicited my first genuine smile in what felt like an eternity, affirming that it was indeed perfect in its waiting solitude. The house slumbered as if anticipating my return, modest in scale compared to the estates my children knew, yet imbued with an irreplaceable essence none other possessed, a tapestry of authentic history woven through years of hidden solace and strategic foresight, a refuge I had preserved in secrecy for decades against this very betrayal, filling me with a surge of emotional reclamation. From my purse, I retrieved the keys, my fingers quivering, not from frailty, but from the overwhelming rush of sentiment, and the door yielded with a nostalgic groan, akin to a long-lost friend's welcoming exhale, releasing an aroma of aged timber and oceanic salt that enveloped me like a comforting embrace. Furniture shrouded in pale sheets loomed like spectral guardians in the subdued light, and I proceeded deliberately, unveiling each piece to resurrect treasures sown long ago, awaiting their moment to flourish anew amidst my heartache's fertile soil. In the kitchen, a revelation awaited on the table, a note scripted in a wavering yet recognizable script. "Mrs. Whitlock, I've waited you these many years. Eliza." My pulse faltered in astonishment and gratitude, for Eliza had served as my housekeeper for 15 devoted years, until my sons decreed her superfluous, citing needless expenditure, while plotting to supplant her with their controlling grasp, another layer of their deceit that now evoked tears of mingled sorrow and relief. Footfalls echoed on the porch, accelerating my heartbeat to a thunderous rhythm threatening to shatter my composure, and the door creaked ajar to reveal Eliza, 3 decades advanced, her locks snow-white, her visage carved with life's narratives in deep furrows, yet her gaze radiated the same unwavering warmth that had sustained me through countless trials. "I knew you'd arrive,"
she uttered with quiet certainty, as though mere days had elapsed rather than epochs, confiding that upon learning of my children's machinations, she trusted I'd forge a path here, her words kindling a spark of hope amid the ashes of my familial disillusionment. "How did you discern their schemes?" I whispered, my voice laced with vulnerability, to which Eliza responded with a melancholic curve of her lips, recounting how Penelope had contacted her a month prior, probing for details on concealed assets and accounts, a revelation I met with a wry amusement, for in their quest to unearth every hidden gem, they had unwittingly sought the guardian of my deepest confidences, who had shielded me with unyielding loyalty. "But I possessed that knowledge," Eliza proceeded, drawing nearer with measured grace, affirming her awareness of this abode, the safeguarded papers, and my intricate designs, which she had tended faithfully in anticipation of this pivotal dawn, her declaration unleashing a torrent of tears from my eyes, as for the first time in agonizing months, I was beheld as a complete being rather than a mere impediment or vault of wealth, a moment of profound emotional catharsis. "The documents remain secure," she murmured, clasping my hands in hers, revealing that she had inspected them monthly to preserve their integrity, ensuring my grand vision endured unscathed by time or treachery. My vision! I had conceived it 30 years hence, upon perceiving my children's covetous gaze upon my holdings as assured birthrights rather than the fruits of my relentless labor, weaving a protective labyrinth so labyrinthine that no advocate could swiftly dismantle it, a strategy born from foresight and the quiet pain of emerging distrust. "Where are they housed?" I breathed, my tone a fragile murmur, prompting Eliza to guide me to a rear chamber repurposed as a fortified office, complete with steel cabinets and a wall-embedded vault, the code unaltered, my late husband's birth date, a poignant tether to Richard, departed a decade ago, whose sage guidance continued to fortify my path. "Never consolidate your treasures in one vessel, Margaret," he would advise with loving firmness, "and permit no one, not even our offspring, to dictate your fate." Words that now resonated with heart-rending relevance as I unlocked the safe with steady resolve, unveiling deeds to unknown estates, offshore investments, an alternate testament eclipsing the one they had pilfered, and most crucially, a voluminous dossier labeled HC for Hope Center, each page a testament to my enduring spirit amid betrayal's storm. "Do you recall your aspiration?" Eliza inquired, as I perused the pages with renewed vigor, reminding me of my desire to establish a haven where elder women could dwell with honor, free from being deemed encumbrances or dismissed as relics, a dream that flooded me with purpose and poignant nostalgia. "Everything stands prepared," she elaborated, "the authorizations secured, the designs finalized, the allocated funds intact, awaiting only my return to ignite the endeavor." Her assurance dissolved my defenses, for tears cascaded freely, for in this revelation lay evidence that amid the crumbling facade of my existence a greater calling had persisted, transcending my children's shallow ambitions and restoring a fragment of my fractured soul. "Is there more?" Eliza queried, producing a mobile from her satchel, noting that Mr. Cromwell awaited my summons, my clandestine attorney of 5 years, compensated by untraceable funds, a man whose own filial betrayal had forged an unbreakable alliance with my cause. "Is he steadfast?" I ventured, though intuition affirmed it, and Eliza's nod reinforced that he comprehended our plight intimately, having thwarted his son's attempt to institutionalize him the prior year. With burgeoning resolve, I accepted the device, initiating the subsequent chapter of my odyssey, one destined to transmute seeming defeat into the most exquisite triumph, a transformation laced with emotional vindication and the sweet anticipation of justice. I dialed the memorized number, and Mr. Cromwell responded promptly, his tone infused with relief and zeal. "Margaret, I sensed today would be the day. Are you prepared to commence?" "More than ever, Mr. Cromwell. It's time to illuminate my children with the truth of who I am, a declaration that mended another shard of my wounded heart." "All is arranged for tomorrow," he conveyed through the line, his satisfaction palpable, detailing how my children had convened a familial assembly at 10 in my residence, presuming to formalize the asset transfers under the guise of legitimacy. Their complacency a poignant irony that stirred both amusement and lingering sorrow within me. "Who attends? Charles, Leo, Penelope, and your eldest sibling Tobias, enlisted as a kin witness to lend an air of propriety, along with their pliable counsel, Mr. Evans, renowned for his moral pliability." A roster that evoked a surge of disdain mingled with the ache of Tobias's long-standing envy, who had persistently urged me to liquidate the ancestral abode inherited 15 years past and divide the proceeds. His presence now akin to a scavenger drawn to decay. And our counter-strategy? Flawless. I'll materialize at 10:30 amid their overconfidence, armed with authentic papers, the recordings from last year, and our bespoke revelation, elements that promise to unravel their web with emotional precision. "Eliza accompanies me," I appended, glancing at my steadfast companion brewing coffee with familiar poise, possessing insights that will illuminate the shadows of their deceit. "Splendid. The greater the credible attestors, the stronger our stance. Are you certain of this course? For once initiated, reversal is impossible." Reflecting on Penelope's contrived grin, Charles's fabrications, Leo's rapacity, and the years of self-denial I had endured to forge their futures only to be viewed as a gateway to wealth upon my demise, I affirmed with unshakable conviction, "I've never been more resolute in all my days." A sentiment that fortified my spirit against the impending emotional maelstrom. That evening, Eliza and I lingered in conversation, evoking bygone eras and envisioning tomorrows, as she narrated her existence post-dismissal by my offspring, securing employment with an urban household, yet perpetually mindful of me, dutifully tending this sanctuary monthly in readiness for my advent. Her devotion evoked waves of gratitude and the bittersweet pang of lost time.
How did you foresee my return? Because I comprehend your essence, Mrs. Whitlock. You're no quitter, and 5 years ago, amid your budding suspicions, you entrusted me with this secrecy, instructing that should you vanish, seek you here foremost. Her recollection stirring a profound emotional resonance as I acknowledged the early omens of disloyalty, furtive exchanges, abruptly halted dialogues, probing financial inquiries that had sown seeds of doubt in my heart. "There's additional revelation you must know," Eliza pressed, her countenance grave, disclosing that 3 months prior, Penelope had visited, not merely for property intel, but to interrogate my cognitive state, seeking indicators of dementia to bolster their narrative, a disclosure that chilled my veins with icy dread. "What response did you offer?" "That you remained the keenest intellect I knew, your mind a fortress of steel," incensing her with my refusal to corroborate her hopes, a stand that deepened my admiration for Eliza's integrity amid the swelling tide of my family's machinations. From sedative potions to contrived temporal queries, all orchestrated to fabricate my incompetence. But wait, there's further. she intoned, retrieving a compact box from the wardrobe, unearthed from your refuse the day they ousted me. Its unveiling halting my breath as love letters from Richard, penned during our courtship and cherished for half a century, emerged. Missives vanished from my chamber the prior month, now recovered from ignominious discard. They consigned them to waste, Eliza whispered, as if mere detritus, these testaments of enduring affection treated with contempt, a violation that trembled through my grasp as the faded parchment retained faint traces of his cologne, each epistle a vessel of vows and memories that now amplified my grief with visceral intensity. Why perpetrate such cruelty? Because authentic love unnerves them, Eliza opined with seasoned insight. Your devotion to Richard, your benevolence toward them, your empire's erection, all reminders of sentiments they cannot fathom. Her words resonating with poignant truth as insomnia claimed me that night, rereading Richard's missives under the veil of darkness, evoking the partner who adored me for my essence, not my acquisitions, who collaborated in our inaugural venture, rejoiced in triumphs, solaced in setbacks. His final script urging, "Margaret, your strength surpasses your belief. Should I depart, recall your value lies not in possessions, but contributions. And should any seek to seize it, combat with the ferocity of one who knows her merit." A mantra that reignited my self-worth amid months of induced diminishment. For too long, I had permitted their diminutions to erode me, enacting vulnerability to assay their fidelity, a trial they catastrophically flunked. Yet Richard's ethos affirmed my intrinsic value transcended their validation, a realization that dawned with empowering clarity. At 8 the following morn, Mr. Cromwell telephoned to refine particulars, relaying my children's nocturnal frenzy in alerting authorities to my disappearance, portraying me as a frail, disoriented victim, an irony that elicited a sardonic smile as I orchestrated my resurgence as their nemesis. The return journey resembled a victorious cavalcade, Eliza at my flank as unyielding sentinel, Mr. Cromwell trailing with evidentiary arsenal, clad in executive garb befitting the paramount negotiation of my existence, one to delineate the chasm between a presumed frail elder and a septuagenarian adept at obliterating underestimators, a prospect that thrilled with emotional vindication. The cab halted a block distant, revealing their vehicles arrayed like conquerors' spoils. Charles's slate BMW, Leo's ivory Mercedes, an alien sedan for their venal jurist, and Tobias's crimson truck, heralding his opportunistic arrival. A tableau that stirred disdain, laced with fraternal melancholy. "Are you resolute?" Eliza queried thrice, her gaze ablaze with shared resolve, to which I assented with unparalleled certainty. Mr. Cromwell, arriving prematurely, awaited in his vehicle, perusing files, and upon my approach, he affirmed readiness, displaying a recorder brimming with last year's confessions, admissions of impatience for my demise, perceptions of me as hindrance, all captured with my consent as prophylactic against foreseen perfidy, a safeguard that now evoked triumphant satisfaction amid lingering pain. And the video stands primed. At the opportune instant, I'll activate it, allowing their utterances to self-destruct, he assured as I advanced toward my domicile, now alien terrain overrun by interlopers who deemed the sovereign eternally exiled. A lethal misjudgment that fueled my steps with resonant authority. I pressed the bell of my own threshold, the act emblematic of their usurpation, compelling me to solicit entry into my sanctuary. And Penelope answered, her visage cycling through shock, terror, cunning, and that detestable feigned beam, exclaiming with theatrical flair, "Margaret! Heavens! Our worry consumed us. Wherever have you been? We've summoned law enforcement, scoured medical facilities." "Contemplating," I retorted, calmly striding inward with fresh perspective, rendering pivotal choices that would redefine our bonds. Charles hastened from the parlor,
trailed by Leo and Tobias, their countenances blending spurious relief with palpable dread, a spectacle delectably poignant as Charles attempted an embrace I evaded with poise, lamenting their concern for me or merely their thwarted agendas, my query slicing the ensuing hush like a blade through fog. The density of that quiet pressed upon me, Leo stammering denials that quavered with exposure, until Mr. Cromwell's knock heralded his arrival, prompting Mr. Evans to rise from the table strewn with forged transfers, inquiring the intruder's identity. "My advocate," I proclaimed with crystalline sharpness, "George Cromwell, expert in geriatric fraud and patrimony safeguarding," words that blanched their complexions as Tobias retreated, rueing his complicity. Mr. Cromwell entered alongside Eliza, briefcase laden with their undoing, greeting Mr. Evans with mock civility, then addressing me formally. "Mrs. Whitlock, I gather signatures are requisite for asset conveyance to your progeny," an assertion I corroborated while observing Charles's feudal composure regain. "Exemplary, yet prior to advancement, certain juridical facets demand verification, such as your cognitive competence for this edict," a point Penelope contested hastily, alleging occasional age-induced befuddlement, eliciting Mr. Cromwell's predatory grin as he produced Dr. Sanchez's recent evaluation attesting my mental acuity. A document I had procured preemptively, its revelation amplifying their dismay with emotional precision.
"Moreover," he persisted, "I possess riveting audio from this very abode, dated 1 year past, a disclosure that drained their visages of color, Charles clutching furniture for support as denials faltered, and upon activation their voices reverberated, Charles yearning for my swift demise to liquidate and divide, Leo plotting incompetence declarations for control, Penelope deriding me as obstinate crone, destined for economical confinement if uncooperative. The playback, enshrining a tomb-like silence as Tobias gazed in appalled epiphany. "Those are misconstrued," Charles faltered without conviction, but Mr. Cromwell's mirthless chuckle unveiled 3 hours of akin admissions, all sanctioned by me, amid long-standing suspicions, a truth that deepened my sorrow yet fortified my stance. Eliza advanced, scrutinizing their spurious papers with authoritative scrutiny, pronouncing them counterfeit, signatures falsified, assets fictitious in official ledgers, a verdict that spurred Mr. Evans's hasty retreat amid protests, my voice interjecting that such feats were plausible for filial thieves plotting maternal plunder, underscoring my superior intellect with a satisfaction born from years of veiled preparation. Mr. Cromwell then proffered the envelope housing my biennial video, wherein I expounded motives, aspirations, and their concealed shames poised for devastation, as I assumed my table's head like the magnet I embodied, declaring it time to confront betrayal's repercussions upon life's giver, their terror-stricken portraits heralding the dawn of my long-awaited catharsis. "Assume seats, everyone," I commanded with unyielding authority that brooked no dissent, watching as Charles, Leo, and Penelope complied like chastened pupils, while Tobias lingered uneasily, and Mr. Evans' escape was thwarted discreetly by Mr. Cromwell's vigilance. "Let us commence with verities you've evaded eternally," I intoned, striding before them as a barrister unveiling indictments, beginning with the fiscal realities you misapprehended, presuming my holdings totaled a mere $1.5 million, a fallacy that elicited anxious exchanges and widened their eyes in dawning horror. "Your estimations falter by over $3 million, I revealed, relishing the absolute hush that ensued, even Eliza's surprised glance underscoring the depths of my concealed empire.
for my authentic fortune, encompassing undisclosed estates, global ventures, and discrete enterprises amassed over decades, surpassed $5 million, a disclosure that rendered Penelope pallid, Charles rigid in his seat, and Leo's whisper of disbelief echoing the emotional upheaval I had engineered with meticulous care. $5.2 million precisely. Funds you schemed to pilfer while envisioning me ensconced in therapeutic yarn pursuits within a dismal asylum. Mr. Cromwell projecting a comprehensive ledger upon the wall, each numeral a rebuke. Primary domicile at $600,000, coastal sanctuary at $450,000, urban suite at $300,000, followed by revelations of Miami duplexes, a Key West inn, burgeoning fund stakes, tech equities, and Swiss Panamanian accounts, their incredulity culminating in Charles's unfinished query of how such feats eluded them. How, indeed, did a purportedly addled matron amass this without detection? I queried rhetorically, my smile laced with years of strategic triumph, attributing it to their egregious undervaluation of their matriarch, a sentiment that pierced with both vindictive glee and the underlying ache of maternal disappointment. Eliza supplemented with a dossier on my covert operations, a property advisory, dual investment entities, and paramountly the endeavor dearest to my heart, prompting Penelope's strangled inquiry into its nature, the juncture I savored most as I unveiled the Hope Center, a sanctuary for forsaken elder women, their progeny viewing them as liabilities rather than treasures. Mr. Cromwell displaying resplendent schematics of verdant expanses, literary havens, artistic ateliers, health sanctums, and gracious lodgings for 200 souls. The terrain is acquired, permissions granted, erection imminent, I elaborated, their bewilderment amplifying as I credited their disdain, each belittlement, each conspiratorial whisper, each exclusionary scheme for enriching the center's offerings, rendering it unparalleled nationwide. A transformation of pain into purpose that filled me with profound emotional fulfillment. Tobias, I know your ignorance spares you culpability, but they, I gestured accusatorily, shall confront betrayal's full toll. Mr. Cromwell enumerating federal infractions, elder exploitation, document falsification, baseless incompetency plots, each carrying incarceration threats that evoked Charles's explosive denial, invoking kinship as shield. Precisely, I retorted icily, your filial bond renders this treachery infinitely more agonizing and inexcusable. Advancing upon Charles to compel eye contact, recounting my sacrifices, an $80,000 education, $50,000 home deposit, $30,000 unpaid loan, 45 years of boundless affection. Querying his repayment with such venom, a litany that evoked streaming tears of liberation rather than lament. Pivoting to Leo, I cataloged $100,000 leukemia treatments, $40,000 divorce aid, biennial shelter during unemployment, unwavering encouragement, demanding reciprocity for his perfidy. The recitation deepened my emotional purge. Lastly, confronting Penelope, I evoked her integration as kin, defenses against familial scorn, testamentary inclusion despite absent blood ties, greater tenderness than her progenitors offered, her betrayal amplifying the cathartic release as tears coursed, affirming my feigned frailties as a deliberate assay they abjectly failed. Mr. Cromwell interjected their spectacular collapse, Eliza presenting my authentic testament, drafted thrice yearly, updated semi-annually amid escalating suspicions, barring Charles's approach as I delineated bequests, $5,000 apiece for Charles and Leo, not for Penelope, given her non-kin status and emotional estrangement. Their outcries of incredulity met with my inexorable allocation of $4,990,000 to the Hope Center, Elder Safeguards, and Eliza's loyalty, surpassing their lifetime's worth, a decree that elicited Penelope's sobs, Charles's furious strike, Leo deflation, emotions I observed with detached pity. Yet a pathway exists, I proffered, witnessing their desperate clutch at redemption's thread, outlining administrative roles at the Hope Center, sans remuneration for 5 years, proving empathy beyond avarice, repairing inflicted wounds, a mandate to honor elders as beings, not barriers, their murmurs of temporal enormity met with my ultimatum, acceptance or perpetual disinheritance amid penal pursuits. It embodied ideal maternal justice, retribution laced with renewal, chastisement veiled in growth, boundaries buoyed by optimism, compelling their choice to depart as aliens or linger to reclaim dignity in my regard. Words that suspended us in a web of contemplation, their calculations reduced our bonds to arithmetic, a poignant spectacle that underscored the depth of our rift. Charles broke the impasse, his timbre laden with suppressed turmoil, professing no intent to wound, a claim I intercepted with scathing recall of their institutionalization plots and asset carvings. Leo's feeble safety pleas branded mendacious. Penelope's survival queries met with my directive to labor as multitudes do, eschewing inheritance via demise for self-sustained existence, a lesson in effort sanctity that evoked both stern resolve and maternal yearning. Mr. Cromwell decreed a diurnal deliberation window. Embrace Hope Center rehabilitation or face immediate indictments, his amusement at their disrupted obligations underscoring my corrections that vocations yielded to atonement's exigency, a stance that fortified my emotional armor. Gazing upon my nurtured garden's oblivious blooms, I queried the betrayal's acutest sting, not their larcenous schemes or avaricious tallies, but their ignorance of my essence, turning to confront their perplexity with a fervent recount of my 72-year odyssey, commencing with $5,000 transmuted to over $5 million, erecting a patriarchal defying empire solo, nurturing progeny amid managerial feats, my voice ascending in passionate vindication of accomplishments they had erased, reducing me to knitting-bound obsolescence, a declaration that resonated with decades of overlooked valor, Eliza's supportive touch anchoring me amid the emotional torrent. "Is there further enlightenment?" I persisted, resuming my seat as Mr. Cromwell showcased the center's grandeur, contemporary edifices amid flora, artistic and melodic realms, erudite repositories, curative enclaves, domiciles evoking warmth. For 200 women forsaken by greed, post-matrimonial ruin, or societal discard, Tobias's admiration eliciting construction timelines, initiation in 6 weeks, inaugural phase in 18 months, with my progeny potentially aiding if electing redemption. "What labors await?" Leo ventured warily. Eliza delineating sanitation, horticulture, oversight, caregiving. Earnest toils instilling services virtue over entitlement. Penelope's protest of inexperience met with my assurance of adaptability. Paralleling my own milestones in commerce at their age, Bourse mastery at 50, digital proficiency at 60, driven by aspiration, while theirs would stem from necessity and renewal, a contrast that evoked reflective melancholy. Charles paced tremulously, deeming the reversal surreal from anticipated windfalls to moral reckonings, my completion affirming their role in a tutorial on familial disloyalty's repercussions. Leo's inheritance query met with conditional affirmation. 5 years' proof of valuing humanity over holdings, yielding comfortable but non-extravagant $500,000 each, sufficient for sustenance, sans reversion to cupidity, the residue eternally funding the center against elder burdensomeness. Mr. Cromwell's definitive closure reiterated the diurnal ultimatum, cautioning against futile legal pursuits given evidence's dissemination, departing as non-negotiable edict, leaving us in silence's toxic pall. Charles's plaintive query on incarceration met with my riposte on their institutional designs, a touche that encapsulated our impasse. Eliza queried my magnanimity post-atrocities, my affirmation rooted in lingering maternal hope for their elevation to envisioned ideals, a wager on blood's triumph over greed that teetered on tomorrow's precipice. Dawn roused me early the subsequent morn, brewing coffee in the kitchen of their celebratory deceit, Eliza joining in vigil as skies transitioned, my ambivalence confessed, yearning for their arrival yet dreading confirmation of estrangement, uncertainties that knotted my heart with poignant tension. At 8 o'clock, Mr. Cromwell rang, affirming preparedness for their indoctrination, site overseers apprised of the unique volunteers, euphemism for penance evaders. My query on sightings met with negation, 2 hours lingering in suspenseful limbo. Eliza and I reached the Hope Center plot at 9:30, my inaugural glimpse post-preliminaries evoking emotional swells, beholding my vision materializing, machinery sculpting earth for healing groves, laborers delineating bases for abodes sheltering discarded matriarchs, a vista that whispered beauty and hope, affirming elder women's refusal of obsolescence.
Mr. Cromwell neared with ledger and helm, delineating rudimentary duties for arrivals, debris clearance, supply organization, labor aid. Alternatively, prosecutorial rendezvous at 11. The clocks march 9:55, 9:57, 9:59, culminating at 10 with a cab's advent, my pulse thundering as Charles emerged in vintage denim and tea, Leo in fresh toil garb, Penelope in active attire, their vulnerable humanity evoking a maelstrom of relief, pity, and guarded optimism. They approached haltingly, akin to doomed captives. Charles announcing presence, my neutral acknowledgement belying cardiac tumult, as Leo voiced intent to amend, Penelope conceding prison aversion as impetus, not exalted, yet a genesis. Mr. Cromwell proffered helms and protocols, octal commencement to quintal cessation, luncheon interlude, intolerance for grievance, periodic appraisals, introducing Mike, seasoned builder and tolerant of indolence, his appraisal eliciting silence on labor familiarity, prompting his grin and directive to relocate rubble manually 200 yards distant. Penelope's horror met with confirmation of effort's essence for entitlement's unlearning. Observing their approach to the mound like an insurmountable peak, Charles wincing at initial heft, Leo stumbling under excess, Penelope lamenting manicure's ruin, yet persisting through silent weeping, their inelegance evoked both schadenfreude and maternal empathy for 4 hours' duration. Luncheon found them grounded amid comrades, devouring plain fare and tepid hydration, attire soiled, limbs marked, visages flushed. My inquiry on sensations eliciting Charles's truck-struck simile, Leo's admission of underestimated rigor, Penelope's nascent appreciation for manual subsistence's toil. Responses that hinted at budding insight amid 1,825 impending days. Afternoon amplified hardships, bodies unaccustomed yielding to fatigue. Yet circa 3, collaboration emerged. Charles aiding Penelope's burdens, Leo hydrating Charles, Penelope gloving Leo's abrasions. Gestures absent for years, kindling faint hope in my observer's heart. Mike's quintal whistle heralded cessation. Tardiness warnings issued. their arthritic departure to cab paused by Charles's gratitude for opportunity undeserved, my correction that merit awaited 1,824 days hence. A exchange that lingered in evening's repast with Eliza, processing hope's glimmer amid oddity of their laborer reduction. Do they endure? Eliza pondered. Uncertain, yet intrigued by potential metamorphosis over pentannual span, gazing stellar as Justice's alchemy into growth commenced, 5 years to discern familial reclamation or respectful substitutes forging. 4.5 years elapsed since Rubble's inaugural tears. The Hope Center now pulsating actuality, hosting 200 women in dignified vitality. My garden stroll amid rose, jasmine scents, and workshop merriment, evoking fulfillment's profound joy. Greeting Alice, 80-year exiled from familial costliness, now chronicling legacies via oral histories. Her project's 50 narratives of wartime nurses, generational educators, decadal matriarchs amid factories, preserving vanishing wisdoms, a realization of envisioned sanctuary that warmed my soul with emotional depth. Seen Charles? In culinary realms, crafting Carmen's nonagenarian feast, a transformation inconceivable 5 years prior, finding him adorning cake with artistic focus, callous digits deft in frosting flora, querying rose hues with intuitive kinship, his affirmation of pink evoking shared understanding, then confiding Carmen's pioneering accountancy amid patriarchal barriers, his reflection on age's undervaluation, marking growth from idiocy to reverence, an admission that mended maternal wounds with tender pride. Leo aids Mercedes' therapy, Penelope's salons, the latter her innovation post-second year's observation of grooming's depressive void. Now overseeing pampering that restores esteem, finding her massaging Miriam's arthritic extremities with empathy, her evolved natural grace and compassionate gaze replacing former avarice, a shift that evoked admiration's warmth. Conferring in gardens overlooking the expanse, her fatigue confession differentiated pretense's exhaustion from purposeful repose, regrets voiced, blindness to my exemplarity, thievery over tutelage, lessons absorbed, respect's earning, age's sagacity, caregiving's fulfillment, culminating in acknowledging my boundless achievements, words that illuminated like post-tempest radiance, affirming transformation's authenticity. Leo bounded with exhilaration over Mercedes' decadal unaided strides. His beaming pride for non-kin's progress contrasted prior emotional barrenness, detailing tailored regimens with deference, his permission query underscoring newfound humility, my endorsement evoking reciprocal warmth. Afternoon's Cromwell confab in my photo-adorned office evaluated authenticity, my affirmation of indelible change via compassion's revelation, deferring testamentary revisions for sextannual trial, liberty's advent testing voluntary commitment versus obligatory endurance, the supreme gauge of character amid regained choices, departure affirming prudence, persistence reclaiming progeny. Communal supper with Eliza amid residence conviviality pondered sextannual anxiety, my curiosity correction invoking life's surprises by a relinquished control, a philosophy born from 76 years' wisdom. 6 months thence, spring's perfection framed the pentannual culmination, sun dappling my desk's sealed testament, awaiting their verdict at 10 as they arrived serene, Penelope voicing intent to remain volitionally, Charles deeming the center familial hearth, Leo echoing purpose's supremacy, tears welling as they professed life's essence in contribution over acquisition, my neutral facade belying cardiac arrest. Why? This abode's kinship, residence bonds, labor's import, They chorused detailing pursuits, Leo's geriatric studies, Penelope's aging psyche courses, Charles's nonprofit mastery, transmuting commerce to altruism, then proposing inheritance renunciation for center's perpetuity, a sacrifice affirming well-spent wealth's impact on dignity's restoration, evoking my pent-up tears of aching pride. Tearing the provisional will granting $500,000 each, I unveiled the authentic, executive roles with modest stipends, Charles directing operations, Leo rehabilitation, Penelope wellness, plus $4.8 million for national expansion, decadal gicuplet ensuring elder justice, their embrace intense as childhoods, yet matured by merit, Penelope's query on opportunity post-perfidy met with my simplicity. You've evolved beyond betrayers into envisioned ideals, time's gift unearthed. Afternoon's assembly announced perpetuity and expansion amid thunderous acclaim, Mercedes lauding their metamorphosis from penalty to boon, care giving solace in ailment, grief, joy, extolling my maternity as exemplar, words that deepened emotional resonance. Evening's familial repast marked authentic reunion, their vows to revolutionize elder care, dignity security choices, respect-founded bonds, evoking profound contentment. Solitary garden nocturne reflected ritualistically, yet tonight's distinction lay in repose as attainment. At 76, transcending mere success to progeny transformation, legacy quantified in revitalized existences, restored honors, activated affections. Richard's epistle affirmed, legacy as map, mind guiding familial reclamation, vengeance alchemized to redemption, justice to grace, my near entombment birthing collective resurrection, a heritage eternally worthy.